What's going on? What's going on? Sorry for the video. Let me see if I can clear it up. The camera is not the best. I'm gonna share my screen here.
Senator McCauley. Here. Ranking Member Demora.
Here. It looks like we have a quorum. The committee will present as a full quorum. First in front of the committee today is Senate Bill 9 for its very first hearing. The committee now calls Senator Steve Huffman and Senator Kirk Shuring to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Demora and the committee for the opportunity to give testimony on Senate Bill 9. As I'm such an old guy and know so much about history, my joint sponsor says you can go first and give the history. So that's what I'm going to do. So in 2016, early 2016, I was asked to chair a task force on medical marijuana. And it was a multidisciplinary task force. We had representation from law enforcement, from the physician community, from hospitals. Former Attorney General Betty Montgomery was on it. Alcohol and drug addiction professionals were on it. Medical marijuana proponents. It was really a great cross-section of people who could give us their honest opinion on the pros and cons of medical marijuana. We felt that we needed to explore it and understand it. We had a tremendous amount of testimony. Almost 100 people showed up. And frankly, their stories, the way that they witnessed to how they needed this as an alternative, frankly, to opioids in many cases, were heart-wrenching and compelling, to the point where one of the alcohol and drug addiction professionals who was on this task force at one point in the dialogue towards the end of the task force, after about 6 weeks, said, well, wait a minute, are you talking about the bad marijuana or the good marijuana? And we thought that was very enlightening, because that's where we had all, even former Attorney General Betty Montgomery, that's where we landed. From that point, Senator Huffman, then Representative Huffman, Dr. Huffman, and I worked together to draft legislation based upon the testimony we got from the task force. We had then formed a new standing committee, a select committee on medical marijuana. I chaired that. My vice chair was then Representative Huffman. So we had more hearings. Overall, we had well over 100 witnesses from the task force and then from the select committee. And we passed a bill in the House by a good substantial margin. Went over to the Senate. We negotiated with them. It was passed. And that was in 2016, in May of 2016. Now, as we looked forward, we knew we had to build a whole new industry. So we purposely put in a legislation that the program had to be operational, fully operational, no later than September 8th of 2018, 2 years after it was signed by the governor. We thought that was ample time. I'm going to be very candid with you. Much to our chagrin, it didn't work that way. Things happen for whatever reason, rightly or wrongly. So it sputtered. It did not actually become, in a limited way, operational, not in a full way, as we had said in the bill, which became law. It started to trickle a little bit in January of 2019. And that leads me to why we're here today. We feel that the supply chain is broken. We feel that it needs fixed. At the end of the day, those who need medical marijuana have to pay an inordinate price to get their medication, to the point where it's not competitive in the marketplace. If you live in Northwestern Ohio, they'll go to Michigan because it's a much more efficient and effective program there. If you don't live in Northwestern Ohio, many of the folks go to the black market. And to that point, just to illustrate that I know that's happening, is as of today's date, there are about 324,000 people in Ohio who have registered with way everything is. But if we don't fix the supply chain, there will be other elements that will come in and turn everything upside down with medical and recreational marijuana. We have to get on top of it. And I'll just close out by saying one of the things that we looked at when we did the task force in 2016 was the governance. And right now we have it siloed. We have the pharmacy board, we have the Department of Commerce, and we have the medical board. We're saying, just like we did with the task force, that we should have a multidisciplinary governance that will oversee the program from all different perspectives and make sure it's being done right, and not from people, well-intended as they might be, within the bureaucracy that really don't have the firsthand perspective on this like others would. So that multidisciplinary council or the commission would be composed of pharmacists, law enforcement, employers, labor, drug addiction experts, physicians, patients. I could go on and on. There's a 13-member commission. But what we're trying to do is, what we learned in the task force is that Maryland had a medical marijuana commission that was comprised much the way we're trying to do ours now. And we just think it's a better system. It will help use the free market to, with supply and demand, to get the price down. There'll be more dispensaries, more better access, and more product, lower prices. And we think that will be good for Ohio, particularly as some others would like to go to the ballot now. And I think they will showcase that they think the current system is broken, and we can't let that happen. We have to fix it, and we should fix it now.
Thank you, Senator Shuring. Chairman, Ranking Member.
Strawberry.
I'll go back to 2016 like Kirk did. The real reason we're here is the true failure of the federal government, is they continue to classify medical marijuana as a Scheduled I drug, which means that there's no medical purpose. And we know that there's medical purpose because the FDA has approved Epidiolex, a form of medical marijuana by FDA to treat kids with seizures. They did the research over at Columbus, at Nationwide Children's. And so we're here today because, to me, this bill is about business. And in medicine, the number one thing is to keep your patient's best interest in mind, and that is what this bill does from a business aspect. It consolidates parts of what's in the pharmacy board and Department of Commerce into one area, so that you may have a problem or a concern about your business, and you have to go to one, two, three different places to get the answer. And this bill kind of consolidates it, and it decreases a lot of regulations. And we're here because in 2016 we didn't know what we didn't know, and we made this bill a lot of safeguards. And a lot of those safeguards is costing the business, the industry, money. For example, how many times you test it? You have to test what appears to be a large quantity where 90% of it is thrown away after you test it because you didn't need that much. So it reduces to a smaller amount and less frequency. It also things that we learned in the pandemic. You're allowed to do curbside pickup. Many of these people and many of these patients are disabled, they're veterans, and we learned that curbside pickup has been very safe. And there's multiple things in there also about the dispensaries and testing and things that make it much more business friendly going forward. I appreciate the time that the Senate gave us last General Assembly and passed this out. I think if we right now announce medical marijuana in the state of Ohio is about $310. And as Senator Shuring said, that the largest dispenser for Ohioans is in Michigan. And we need to turn that around and make it more friendly so people come here and that they have a safe, viable product. One concern people will have is that in the bill that is you're allowed to concentrate medical marijuana, the THC level to 90%. And that gets concerning to people, but you also then have to look, you have to then dilute it back down to an appropriate amount that was where the medical marijuana came from. And it's just that the industry and the production is so fine that it concentrates it, and then you, just like orange juice, you don't drink concentrated orange juice, you dilute it down and make a better product. So I appreciate your time today, and Senator Shuring and I would be more than happy to answer any questions.
I thank you both senators for your testimony today. It means a lot to me. I'll start with the questions as far as the committee goes. This is a subject I know really well, and just so the public knows, we're going to be very efficient with this committee and we're going to move very rapidly. So if there's concerns by the greater public, they should reach out to your office, probably sooner than later. I learned a lot about this in the last General Assembly. So if you gentlemen could take a moment and go through two different points of focus. One of the points of focus is if you could outline some of the safety precautions and the hazards of not having a strong medical marijuana agency throughout the state and what kind of harm it could do to our constituents. And then also the importance of keeping a separation between adult use, recreational, whatever you want to call it, versus medical, and why is it important to keep those two topics separate? Thank you.
I'll start out. Continuing in this bill is some premises that we started in 2016. No homegrown, no smoking, and no taxes. To me, homegrown is recreational, because if you grow 10 plants, your neighbor kid's going to steal one, you're going to sell some to your neighbor. So there's no homegrown, there's no smoking. There's different aspects of tinctures and oils and gummies that they can be manufactured in, and no taxes. And people say, well, we should get our percent. Well, the Ohio Constitution is quite clear that you cannot tax medication. And once we identified medical marijuana as a medicine, we can't tax it. So Senator Shuring alluded to this. Half of the people, 160,000 people that have a medical marijuana card, do not use it anymore. They're going out to the black market because it's too expensive. There are people out there that will lace it with fentanyl and other things that make it very dangerous. So I believe that is one of the big things about safety in the medical marijuana industry. We haven't had, my knowledge is we've had 2 attempted robberies at medical marijuana businesses. Somebody tried to run their car through the front door, and there was something else, and neither of them was part of no product was lost. The number of security cameras and security at these places are just very high, and so there's no loss. It hasn't been any lost product, and they're very clean. I mean, you go in there, it's like an Apple store, it's like a pharmaceutical business. It is very clean, very prestige, because they're trying to keep the industry like that and keep their products good.
Thank you. I'll speak to the adult use, which is recreational. One thing that I will emphasize that needs to be noted with now the meter running on the statutory provision, the legislation through initiative petition that has been submitted to the General Assembly. We work very closely with employers and labor to make sure that this law as it stands today recognizes that we are a at-will state. And that means that employers still can have their own guidance and rules as it relates to whether or not they want to have zero tolerance at the workplace. Both the labor representation and the employer representation unanimously were behind that. That's going to go out the window. The other thing that Dr. Huffman alluded to is that when you start, we purposely said no home grow. If you have home grow, that's not regulated. That's something that you have in your backyard. Marijuana is a prolific plant. It's like my neighbor when he grows his tomatoes. When he starts to harvest them, I get bags and bags and bags and bags. Now, under this proposed statutory change, that probably will go to the ballot. We'll be getting bags and bags and bags, not of tomatoes, but of marijuana. And then it begs the question, how long will it take for the black market to understand that and start buying it? And you would hope most of them would be on the up and up and wouldn't do anything to harm people. But we know right now, as we speak, some of that black market marijuana is being laced with fentanyl. So that's why, we also in this bill expand the number of medical conditions that are eligible for marijuana, medical marijuana. And we also give the discretionary authority to the physician to work with his or her patient to figure out what is in the best interest of the patient. And by the way, if a physician is abusing that authority, they're subject to reprimand by the state medical board. So we think it's a much more user-friendly model. It's a regulated model. And others who want to say that they're going to regulate marijuana like alcohol, I would beg to differ with them. I think it's far from the truth.
I actually have a follow-up. When you look at the state of Colorado, and I'm very curious, I think in the last General Assembly, I didn't really dig into this direction, but how Bureau of Workers and Employment, as far as the employer goes, I know Colorado, they were working on techniques to see, just like with blood alcohol content, how long ago you were drinking. Is there any mechanisms that an employer in the state of Ohio could use if they wanted to allow a medical card carrying marijuana patient to actually, work for them? Is there testing that allows us to see how long that person was using that product before perhaps using equipment that they probably shouldn't be?
Well, Chairman, I don't think that technology has been perfected because if you're a daily user, your level may be up here and you're not intoxicated. And you may be a one-time user and just use it that day, and it could be even lower, but you're intoxicated. So your body gets used to it. So that technology has not been perfected yet, as far as I'm concerned.
I appreciate that.
And if I may, but that's what's so important about the current law, Mr. Chairman, is that we give the employer the ability to make those decisions and how they're going to monitor and how they're going to make sure that the employee guidebook is being followed. And again, labor and management both agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senators, this is my first committee hearing, so apologize if I do something stupid. As you said, this is going to go to a ballot, and every polling, all the polling I've seen said it's likely to pass. So how does this, if it passes and the voters approve it, what are we going to be able to do to regulate this part as opposed to the other part?
To the senator through the chair, if the ballot initiative passes, I don't see much of a medical marijuana industry. I think there will be a small portion that will appreciate the safety of the product. and continue through the program. But just like that 160,000 people, they'll either start growing their own and going to recreational. And this, again, this bill to me is not so much about the ballot initiative, but to make the industry as best as we can. If we're going to have an industry here in the state of Ohio, we need to make it the best we can so that there's less regulations and it's working efficiently.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. Just,
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Senator Demora, you're in politics, polls, particularly early on, are not always reflective of what the voters' will is. And there's not even a campaign yet. So, but I would tell you, if we, to Senator Huffman's point, it's paramount we get the system right, notwithstanding what might be going on with the ballot initiative. But if they're framing the polls based upon what people's perception is of the current medical marijuana program, yeah, I could see where there could be some issues.
and just one quick follow-up. I'm worried about, I didn't see anything in the bill about if people are participating legally and their doctors have prescribed them medical marijuana, as you said, there still could be repercussions from the workplace. And there's things about custody of kids that could come up in court. Is there anything to protect these people? And if they need medical marijuana or they can't function because of their health issues, why are they being penalized? There should be some things in the bill, I think, that prevent people from losing their, as this is a child custody case, because someone's got a medical marijuana card, they could lose their children or potentially losing their job. I understand if they come to work like that, but if you test for it, if you smoke over the weekend and you're sick, you come to work and you haven't smoked it, well, I mean, there ought to be some kind of allowance for that because they need this to, for their health.
Senator, through the chair, a couple of corrections. Medical marijuana is not prescribed. It is recommended because it's not a prescription. And number two, there's no smoking of medical marijuana. I believe that we did this, 6 years ago to continue to have a drug-free workplace, to allow the employer to decide what is dangerous and what kind of atmosphere that they want their employees to work in.
If I can add to that, Senator Demora, Mr. Chairman, basically, marijuana could be abused just like alcohol's abused. Okay, so oftentimes the regulatory agency, the disciplinary agency, the courts, whatever, will tailor make that probation based upon the extent of the abuse. So we still want to give them that discretion. That discretion is still available, and I think it's working. In some cases, as you know, with child custody, the terms and conditions are that you can't have an alcoholic beverage when you're with your children under a joint custody agreement or whatever. So let the courts decide. It's working now with alcohol, working now with marijuana, and I think it's not broken.
One last comment. It seems like some of the states that have approved adult use, that if you ask any of those legislators, they all say that the medical laws that came before that was sort of the standard for that state for what would come in the future. So I think that even makes your work a little bit more important. I thank you, gentlemen, for your testimonies today. This will constitute the first hearing of Senate Bill 9. If we have any further business to be brought before the committee, it seems that we don't. The committee stands adjourned.
Well, there you go, people. That was the 17th, I believe. So, a lot to talk about. Let us know in the comments what you think. Ohio obviously is behind a lot of other states. We have a medical program, but as you see, the supply chain is broken. As a medical patient myself, it can often be challenging to find products because we have so few dispensaries. I'm in the state capital of Columbus. We have a few dispensaries, but where I'm located, the closest one is still about 10 minutes away. Thankfully, I don't have a debilitating illness or disease, but I know there are people with, debilitating illnesses and diseases that need medical marijuana to help them. You have people with cancer, people with other ailments and illnesses. Also, public transportation isn't the easiest thing in Ohio and in Columbus to get to places. Not everybody has a car, obviously. Not everybody has family or a caretaker to help them all the time. Obviously, inflation, gas prices, food prices are rising, so it's hard. Cannabis was a cash only thing. So you're not able to buy cannabis or medical marijuana with your insurance, which also hampers and helps, deters people. You have, again, they brought it up, the black market. Obviously, a lot of people, you have 300,000 some odd people that have gotten licenses or recommendations to use medical marijuana, but less, I think only like 100-something thousand are actively using it. Which, you could pretty much say that people are going to the black market, the legacy market, as we like to call it. 300,000 people is also not a lot of people, especially in a state of more than 11 million people. So one has to think, if you only have 300,000 people who've got recommendations in the last 3 years, but we have 11 plus million people in the state, how many people haven't even gotten recommendations that could benefit from cannabis or benefit from a recommendation that are just using the illicit market? I know I talk to people all the time that are just like, why would I go to the medical side? Why would I pay $200 for a card when I can just go to my neighborhood plug, go down the street, or go up to Michigan, where I don't need, a license. I don't need to have a card. And I'm going to get a better deal. I might have better products, more options. And again, sometimes, again, the legacy market isn't always the best because you don't know the quality, you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know if it's laced with something. So there's just a lot of ifs, ands, or buts about it. But good to see, obviously, that the state talking about it. I know as patients, as constituents and citizens, we need to be on them. We need to be holding our state representatives accountable. Those gentlemen right there, if you agree with them, you should hit them up. You should contact them, write them an email, go to the state government website, write to the governor, whatever you got to do. But our program needs to be improved dramatically. But I just wanted to share that with you all. Please like, follow, and subscribe to our channel. If you have any questions, any comments you want us to share, please put them in the comments. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Also follow us on Instagram at Ohio Cannabis Report. You can also follow us on Twitter at the Ohio Cannabis Report, and you can also join us on Facebook at the Ohio Cannabis Report. I'm out. Peace.